Hi, this is Rayan. I'm one of the founders at ORENDA. I wanted to tell you more about how to pick the right coffee and water when using your coffee maker. The idea here is that if we start with the wrong ingredients, no matter how good the process is, the end result will always be bad. But if we start with the good ingredients, we'll maximize the probability that you can have the best coffee possible. And so in this guide, we'll explain 3 key ideas about how to pick the right coffee, and then after, how to pick the right water. There are 3 things to understand when picking your coffee. First is the roast level. Now, what is the roast level? Basically, it's how cooked the beans are. Now, there are undercooked beans. There's beans that are cooked just right, and there's beans that are overcooked. The technical terms they usually use in order is cinnamon roast, light roast, medium roast, full city roast, and then dark, French, Italian. I'll show you visually in the video as well. Now, the problem is these were meant for different purposes, and they were roasted with a different idea in mind. And there are good ones to use with the right techniques. There are bad ones. So, for example, when you make espresso, you should probably go for a dark roast and maybe something oily. But when you do pour over or French press, you don't want to do that because it does not taste good. Now, fundamentally, the darker the roast, the less unique flavors and tastes there are, because it's overcooked and it's burnt. And also the caffeine content decreases because of the heat. So even though it tastes stronger, it's actually not stronger. Now, ORENDA was designed to customize the coffee for pour over, French press, cold brew, but not to do espresso shots. So the grinder was meant for medium, full city, and light roast, not the very dark oily beans. Now, it could still function with them, but it will lead to a lot more clogging than natural. So when you use medium roast, for example, we had hundreds of kilograms grinded with many different machines and no clogging problems. So it would take months for you to need to clean it properly. But if you use the oily beans, you will need to maintain the grinder much more frequently. And there's no real advantage because you lose the unique flavors of the bean and you're paying money for something that's overcooked. It doesn't make sense, basically. And we understand that many people would like to have the really dark ones, but we would like to encourage you to try something different. And once you try the really good medium roasts, I seriously doubt you would ever go back to the say French roast or Italian roast or something like that. And you don't have to take my word, you can try it out. So in summary, for ORENDA, do not use dark oily beans. That's the rule of thumb. The next bit about picking your coffee is what they call origin. So you probably have heard the phrase single origin being said many times. What it really means is this coffee is so unique that the supplier refused to mix it with other coffees and kept it based on the location it came from. So, for example, a coffee from Sidamo, Ethiopia, as opposed to just a coffee with a brand name. So the coffees that do not have a very unique location are a mixture of other coffees. Usually they didn't pass the high quality standard, and so they were mass produced and mass roasted, and they do not have a single origin. But if the coffee quality was really high, it would actually be sold as a single origin coffee, and it would have a very unique location label on it. So when you pick your beans, it's extremely important to go for the single origin beans because they actually have very good unique flavors and aromas, and that's what you want. Oh, and just because it's high quality doesn't mean it's not affordable. Per cup, it is more expensive, but only by a couple cents, maybe 10 cents more per cup. The quality improvement is significantly more than the small increase in cost. So it's still affordable and it's really good. So we seriously recommend that you stick to single origin coffee. The last bit we wanted to acknowledge is you want to target local roasters rather than anything too big like a roaster from your favorite grocery store or your favorite cafe that's a chain cafe. We do not recommend those. We highly recommend the local roasters. And we're not saying this just to feel good and stuff. The local roasters, they're not financially big, so they have to specialize. And guess what they specialize in? Quality. They try to have the highest quality possible, given that they can't scale and they don't have that much money. And so when you go to your local roaster to get your single origin medium roast, you can actually get it as fresh as possible, fresher than anything even really big cafes provide. I don't want to use names and get sued or something, but basically look for a date on the bag and make sure it's really soon compared to when you bought it, like within the last couple of days, maximum couple of weeks. But you should be able to find in North America a local roaster that roasts it fresh, so you get it in a day or two after he roasted it. So overall, these three things are extremely important to enjoy your coffee as best as possible. You have to pick something close to medium roast, you have to pick single origin coffee, and you have to go with your local roaster. And that way the chance of you enjoying this is significantly higher. I also encourage you to explore and try different coffees and share with everybody what you thought about the different beans and so on. Like if you already tried in your machine the dark one and the light one and the medium one, or different regions, then tell people about it in the community or the comment section. Okay, so now that we addressed the coffee picking, the second most important ingredient is the water, and it forms 99% of the beverage, so it's really important and it's overlooked. Now, regular water would do the trick, like you do not have to go fancy, but there's some small tips that could make it a lot better without paying too much money. So one tip is you do want to filter the water in general, because that will reduce some of the minerals that build up inside the machine. Now when they do build up, we can descale it, it'll be fine, but it's just extra maintenance and extra damage, and it applies to every machine. So generally speaking, use a filter. Now the thing is, there's different types of filter and they do different tricks, and these different tricks lead to different quality coffee and quality water. The tip that I want you to remember is you want to decrease all the minerals except magnesium. You want to increase magnesium. We recommend a very specific filter that removes impurities and then adds magnesium. Now, why would we bother add magnesium and add minerals to the water? Well, there's a bunch of reasons. One of them is when you add a mineral to something, to water, you help it extract whatever chemical you're trying to extract. It's kind of like using salt in cooking. Actually, chemically, it's exactly the same. You're adding a mineral to the cooking process and it extracts better. And magnesium is unique because it's one of those ones that make it taste really good, but does not build a big lime scale, as opposed to calcium, for example, where it could make it taste good, but it will build a scale inside the machine, which means you'll have to descale more frequently. We recommend buying the filter below. We don't know the company, we just think the product is good. So just one more time, in summary, to have the best experience possible, you need to use medium roast, single origin, local coffee, and filtered water with magnesium added to it.